Did you know that most people negotiate arrangements for their finances and their kids without a lawyer? That's actually normal. It's not normal to go to court and spend thousands of dollars on lawyers and years of your time fighting about your children and property. It is normal for 95% of us that separate to reach an agreement between yourselves. Now, that can happen in a couple of ways. Some people separate, it's quite amicable, and they'll chat to each other and talk about how they would like things to look going forward. And they'll come to us as lawyers and say, hey, Kelly, team, we've separated, this is what our plan is. Can you help us put it into a document? Sure, we can do that. We'll give you some advice about the agreement that you've reached and whether or not a court would approve it. Remember, the court has two important jobs. With children, the most important thing they're looking at is whether any agreement you've reached is in the best interests of a child. For example, a young child, baby, a court is unlikely to make an order that a young baby spend week about with each parent. Very unlikely to do that because a court and probably all the psychologists and other social scientists would say that that's not a really good, secure arrangement for a baby of that age or a young child. The second thing that the court looks at is when we're asking the court to make some orders to affect the property settlement that agreement that we've come to, is whether or not the agreement is what we call just and equitable. Now, it's not always fair, but the court has a process that it goes through, and you'll hear lawyers talk about it being the 4-step process, a process that it goes through to make sure that any agreement or any orders that it makes that, make your agreement official are just and equitable. And the reason that you need to think about that when you're negotiating is you don't want to negotiate something that a court's just going to tell you that we're not going to make that order. So we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that any agreement we reach is going to be approved by the court. The reason we need to document our agreements once we've separated and we've reached that agreement, hallelujah, no thousands of dollars in lawyer fees being spent, is that some people don't always keep up their end of the bargain, right? That could be for various reasons. They get a new hot date, their work or income changes, who knows, lots of reasons. So we need to be able to confidently say that if we've reached an agreement about finances or children's living arrangements, that if that agreement is not complied with, then you can seek help from the court to make the other person comply, because that's what you agreed on and that's what you want to happen. So it's very important for those reasons. We do see quite a lot of people, not quite a lot, we see some people who come in and say, this is what we've been doing, we've separated, and this is what we've been doing with the kids, or this is what we've been doing with the money. One person's been paying the mortgage and the other person's doing this, that and the other, and now it's stopped. They're not returning the kids, or they're not paying this bill or that bill. You need to help me make them do that. We can't do that, there's no agreement. So it's really important, if you want help, to get someone to comply with the agreement, that it's documented and we can go to a court and say, this is the agreement and this is, person's not complying. So it's really, really important. The other thing is if you have the document prepared showing this agreement, say for example, you've separated and one person wants to stay in the house, the other person's buying them out. If you don't have the agreement, the person who's buying the other person's interest would have to pay stamp duty. If you have it as a court order or what we call a binding financial agreement, there's no stamp duty. So there's other reasons, lots of them, but these are just some examples of why you should have your agreement documented. Sometimes families reach an agreement about most things, but there's some things they just can't agree on. And in my experience, it's little things or it is one big thing. And they need the help of lawyers to work through that process. Most times, to help the parties and the lawyers all come together, a mediator is engaged to help them work through those issues. So it is really such a useful tool, and it saves so much money on legal fees and court time and all the rest of it, is, you know, going through that mediation process. One of the advantages of having your lawyer with you at the mediation is that you not only have access to your lawyer for the whole time of the mediation, and you can ask questions, run ideas by them, you know, all those sorts of things. Your lawyer is there and can document the things that you agree about so that that can be signed off as soon as possible. Some people do it there and then at the mediation and then send it off to the court for filing. Some people need a bit more time if some things are a bit more complex to create the document. But most of the time, people reach an agreement at mediation and it's all sorted very quickly. So really, separating your legal journey ends then at that point for most families. They've been to mediation, they've got an agreement, and it's being typed up, signed and sent off to be approved by the court. The pathway for them is quite simple. They separate, they negotiate, they provide each other with the disclosure documents that they need so that they can negotiate. They go to mediation and then they have a resolution and it's all done. We hope for you that this is your journey.